Space Arena.
Grand Arena.
SAGA Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Kennedy Hawk from the SAGA podcast team. I'm here with a Star Wars Unlimited deck tech. This is all about Vader paired with a 30 hit point Vigilance base, and it is a dominating, controlling deck that really makes your opponent, or makes you want to leave your opponent with no choices on the field. So this deck is titled Lack of Faith because I feel like a lot of people don't have faith in the Vader leader, even though his power is incredibly powerful. So let's get on into this deck tech video. Awesome, let's get the camera turned on there. It is on. So in my deck techs, what I'd like to do, this is my first one for Star Wars Unlimited, I like to go through the deck concept, talk about the curve, and what different cards we're going to have at all the different cost points through the deck. We'll go through some deck strategy for early, mid, and late game, and then talk about some of the lines of play and some of the tricky strategy tips, especially in the current meta. We'll go through some pivot packages, which are really sort of like sideboards or packages that you could include depending on your collection, your local meta, and what sort of flavor you want to have with your deck. And then we'll wrap up with some M&Ms, some closing remarks, and some gameplay footage from my third week of the SAGA Webcam League. Alright, so let's get on into the deck concept. Vader's leader ability, it's incredibly powerful. You can pay 1 and exhaust Vader in leader form. If you played a villainy card this phase, deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a base. It allows you to put pressure on opponent's bases, so if someone's running an ECL or a 25 hit point base, you start making it so your units don't have to do that full 25 hit points of damage because you're getting some of that from your leader. Because of that, you're often playing off curve, right? If you want to be able to ping with leader's ability every turn, that means you're playing down 1 resource every turn. So when your opponent plays a 2-drop, you might be playing a 1-drop. When they play a 5-drop, you're playing a 4-drop. And we have to be able to make up for that. So we don't always use Vader's ability, but when we do use it, it tends to swing games because we're using it to finish off units and put pressure onto our opponent's base. Vader has an amazing body when he flips as well. So he flips at 7 resources into a 5/8, boss monster. On attack, that 5/8 boss monster will deal 2 damage to a unit. He can shoot space units down, he can shoot ground units down, and he is just, all powerful once he gets out there. But we need to survive to turn 7 to take advantage of this. And in the current meta, when there's a lot of mid-range decks and a lot of very fast decks, that can be difficult to do. So we're going to do this using a steady flow of control and kill by hand cards. So let's talk about what those are. Kill by hand cards. What I mean by this is a card that attempts to control the board or remove an opposing unit from the board while played from your hand. This could be simple like events, right? We have open fire, it costs 3, deal 4 damage to a unit. Obviously, this is trying to remove a unit. In aggression and vigilance, we have a really large body of units in this color combination that have a better path towards this. They're units that have effects that play or trigger when played. And these when played effects also try to remove something from the board. So there's a smattering of them down here. We've got Avenger, right? He's the big one. An 8/8 space unit on 9 resources. When played on attack, an opponent chooses a non-leader unit they control and defeats that unit. Very, very strong. Playing Avenger to wipe out a unit and then being able to repeat that on attack means you can keep that board clear. But again, you got to get to turn 9. We're not running command, so we don't have a lot of ramp here. We're going to have to control the board until we get there. And that's where all these other units come in. We have Imperial Interceptor. When played, you may deal 3 damage to a space unit. Ruthless Raider. When played and defeated, deal 2 damage to an enemy base and an enemy unit. And Death Trooper. Deal 2 damage to a friendly ground unit and 2 damage to enemy unit. So there's a ton of bodies in Vigilance and Aggression that are actually just like events. They're almost just like Open Fire, but they come with a stat as well, right? Just comparing Death Trooper and Open Fire. Open Fire is deal 4 to a unit. That's very strong. Death Trooper is deal 2 to a ground unit and get yourself a body. That's what we're looking for, is to build our board while dismantling our opponent's board. So overkill. It might seem like overkill, but the version of the deck that we're going to go through the curve on today contains 34 cards that attempt to remove a unit or damage a unit or do something to a unit when they're played. That's really important because in Star Wars Unlimited, since your units come in exhausted, that means you're going to have to wait around typically before they have their effect. So your opponent has a lot of time to prepare for and make it disadvantageous for you to trade with that unit. Since your units are using when played abilities, they sort of get the removal off right up front, and then anything else they get is just gravy, so it's even better. Our 34 cards are a healthy mix of events and units, but the result is that you're continuously dismantling your opponent's board until you can get your big stick Vader down and then really just dominate the game. After this initial version that we're going to go through really quick, I have a couple different pivot packages for different ways you could still play this style of deck just by swapping out a few cards, and we'll go through those as well. Alright, so I'm going to go through each cost from 1 to 9 in this deck, and on the left half of the screen, you're going to see non-removal cards. These are cards that aren't trying to remove something upon enters play. On the right half of the screen, you're going to see cards that are removal. So at the 1 cost slot, we've got 3 copies of Death Star Stormtrooper and 2 copies of TIE Ellen Fighter. These are really great for proccing or triggering Vader's ability. You can play something turn 1 at 1 cost and still be able to ping with Vader. The 3 power on Death Star Stormtrooper is super relevant for making sure that we can handle things like battlefield marines and all sorts of other things, and just getting early presence to space does not hurt. Typically, I don't try to play these turn 1 unless I'm playing against a player that's going to drop one of those 3 power or 3 hit point units on turn 1. I like to save these for later so that I can set up Vader triggers for real cheap while still holding all my control events in my hand. Alright, at 2 cost, we've got 8 cards that are not removal and 5 cards that are removal, but they're not removal that you'd want to play on your opening turn. So we've got 2 copies of First Legion Stormtrooper. When attacking a damaged unit, this unit gets +2/+0 and gains Overwhelm. You're going to damage a lot of units with Vader's ability, so this unit just seems like a shoe-in. We've got 3 copies of a really important unit for Villainy, Vigilance, Inferno 4. When played and when defeated, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put any number back on top and any number back on bottom in the order of your choice. That's really important. The most important thing you can do in a control deck is know what solutions you have in your deck and know what your opponent could be putting onto the board so that you can find the right solutions to whatever comes out. We've got 3 copies of Viper Probe Droid. When played, look at an opponent's hand. Another really important thing, knowing what they have as their play options, and then knowing what solutions you can find with Inferno 4. So these units sort of support that whole idea of controlling and dominating your opponent's board. We've got 5 things of removal, we'll call them. Snowtrooper Lieutenant, I call him removal because he performs an attack. He's really more action compression. But he does let units swing up curve and trade for value, which is really important since we want to trigger Vader's ability. When played, you may make an attack with the unit. If it's an Imperial unit, it gets +2 power for this attack. That lets your units trade up real high in the curve, right? A Viper Probe Droid can now do 5 damage and take out a Sabine. That's really important. So we like using that as sort of removal later in the game. It's sort of a spell that lets something attack and swing up curve and then still plinks a body onto the board. I've got 2 copies of Vader's Lightsaber attached to a non-vehicle unit. When played, if the attached unit is Darth Vader, you may deal 4 damage to a ground unit. This is actually really hilarious. You can play this on enemy Darth Vader. So you're typically going to play it on your Darth Vader after you flip. So you flip Darth Vader at 7 resources. You play this. You've still got 5 open for a Vanquish or a Takedown or whatever else you want to play with your 5 resources. But you've now pinged from the Lightsaber, pinged from Vader attacking, attacked with Vader and hit something else, and you've probably just completely dismantled your opponent's board. So those removal cards are meant for later in the game, not that initial turn. Initial turn 1, you're probably going to want to play an Inferno 4 or Viper Probe Droid. Backup would be this Snowtrooper or a Death Star Stormtrooper. Alright, getting to the 3 resource slot, we've got 3 copies of Cell Block Guard, which are non-removal. Your opponent will have to trade into them, so helps a little bit, and it helps stall the game down. But we've got a really great suite of removal cards at 3 costs. We've got 3 copies of Death Trooper, which we already went over. It's ping something on your ground for 2, ping something on your opponent's ground for 2. You have to sort of be able to do both, and you can always ping that Death Trooper, so you can be the target for his own ability. We've got 3 copies of Power of the Dark Side. We'll talk about this later, but this card is really awesome. An opponent chooses a unit they control, defeat that unit. This is strongest when your opponent doesn't have a choice. They're slopping something down on curve, like a 6-drop, and then you play Power of the Dark Side and blow it up, and still have 3 resources left. So you can ping with Vader and play that Inferno 4 or whatever else you want to do. We've got 2 copies of Open Fire and 3 copies of I Am Your Father. These are both damage from hand events. I lean more into the I Am Your Father because I want to make sure I have enough villainy cards in here that I'm constantly triggering Vader's ability. I also really like I Am Your Father in like hyper control decks like this one, because typically I'm using this as late game removal, and my opponent has the option of deleting whatever unit I'm trying to get rid of, or letting me draw 3 more control solutions into my hand, and then I'm probably getting rid of that unit anyway. So it's like a lose-lose for my opponent in that situation. There is technically a better choice for them. It's typically hint taking the damage, but even if they take the damage, I remove the threat. I'm still happy because that stabilizes my board so Vader can come out. All right, at 4 cost, I've got 6 things, and you're now going to see that we're heavily slanted towards the removal side of the board, and our number of units is getting lower. We don't have a lot of draw in this deck. In fact, I think we have 0 draw in this deck. So we are counting in these later turns on drawing into our units, and that's why we have less of them, because we'll have more time to get to those cards. So we've got 3 copies of Imperial Interceptor. Blow up space, seems good. Kills all the things Sabine doesn't want you to kill. We've got 3 copies of Takedown. This card is really important, and we're going to talk about it later, but defeat a unit with 5 or less remaining HP. Probably the most important card in Vigilance right now. This card really, really, really helps us counter the main meta that's out there, except for Boba Fett. We'll talk about him as well. All right, at 5, I have 2 copies of Vanquish. Since then, in the video I have played, I actually went up to 3 copies of Vanquish, and I talk about that a little bit in the pivot packages here, but this is mainly reason that I went up to 3 is you have to have an answer to Fett's Fire Spray. But in general, just Vanquish is really good. Like, delete a non-leader unit, no complaints. All right, at 6, we've got 2 copies of Ruthless Raider. Another card I wish I could go to 3 on, but I just don't have space in my deck. This is really good for putting that final pressure onto your opponent, or if you get into like a lock against Iden where you just can't get that last damage in, you can play Raider and ping your opponent, and then if they don't remove the Raider, you're doing even more damage next turn. A lot of times that Ruthless Raider leads to a scoop, if we do Ruthless Raider and flip Vader in the same turn or something like that. When played, you're dealing 2 damage to their base and hopefully removing or finishing off a unit. They have the option to remove your Raider and take another 2 damage to base, which they might not want to do right away, or let you finish off another unit, which could be really disadvantageous to them. Or they can let it sit out there, and then next turn you can attack for another 4. So their choice is remove it right away and waste the removal and still take 4 damage, or don't waste the removal and take 8 or possibly even 12 damage from this unit, which is really not fun to do. All right, at 7 cost, we have 2 copies of Count Dooku. He's shielded, and you may defeat a unit with 4 or less remaining HP. So he's got a takedown built into him, but a slightly weaker takedown that can't hit 5 health units. Still very, very powerful and very important in our deck. Our turn 7, we love, our resource turn 7, we love to see Count Dooku. At 8, I've got 2 copies of Emperor Palpatine and 2 copies of Super Laser Blast. I've actually recently thought about dropping Super Laser Blast. I haven't yet, but we'll talk about it more in the pivot packages. Really great cards. More bodies that remove things when they come into play with Emperor Palpatine. Deal 6 damage divided among enemy units as you choose. Really, really good. And then Super Laser Blast is great for just wiping the board if you need a reset before you're going to deploy your Vader. All right, and then we top it off with 2 copies of Avenger, which we already talked about. An opponent chooses a non-leader unit they control, and you defeat that unit. Really, really, really strong. All right, so what's the deck strategy here? Your early game is where things can really fall apart. You've got a lot of low drops, and that's why our deck is mainly seated towards those early turns. But with the heavy rush and like aggressive meta that's out there right now, things can really snowball really quickly if you're not careful. So you're going to need to know the deck you're going into when you see that opposing leader and that opposing battlefield. Think about what they could have, what tools they could have that you need to take care of. Especially in this right now, we have this one set meta where like the card pool is pretty easy to memorize and learn once you've played enough. You should know what sort of threats your opponent could throw at you. And you should know within your deck what answers do you have for those threats, and then make sure that you're finding the right answers as your opponent can put those threats onto the board. That's the typical victory condition for a control deck, is a lot of knowledge. All right, so early game, we have 6 units that can take down an early Battlefield Marine, which is a 3/3 command heroism unit. We have 3 copies of Death Star Stormtrooper and 3 copies of Vapor Prodroid. Very important units. Don't forget that we can play a 1-cost unit and then still ping something. So if your opponent plays an A-Wing, you could play a TIE Fighter, ping the A-Wing and set yourself up to remove that TIE fighter next turn. Typically, we like to have the initiative early so that we can take out units before they get to attack. We're preserving more base health to get to later in the game, and we're controlling those opposing units instead of letting them trade into us. Generally, we want to trade 1-to-1 with our units, or 2-to-1 if we can work that out. And it's often useful to have that initiative at this point in the game. Don't forget that you can play that 1-cost unit and still ping with Vader's ability. I typically only do that when I don't have the initiative, because if I have the initiative, I want to be dropping a 2-cost unit and claiming as fast as I can. Alright, don't be fooled by the fact that there's 18 1-to-2 cost cards in this deck. We talked about this earlier. A lot of these cards are meant for later in the game. Vader's Saber, the Snowtrooper, and the Snowtrooper Lieutenants, and the Snowtrooper First Legion. All of those are like great cards later in the game, so they're not the things that we want to be dropping on that turn 1. Turn 1, you should really focus on Probe Droid, Inferno 4, and Death Star Stormtrooper or TIE LN Fighter. Those are usually your turn 1 plays, so we're really reduced in our turn 1 plays. I think we had 3 Probe Droid, 3 Stormtrooper, 3 Inferno 4, and 2 of the TIE Fighter. So we're at 11, turn 1 plays, plus a couple emergency plays if we needed to play one of those other units. Alright, so the mid-game, this isn't really the mid-game, but in the current meta, I feel like turns 2 to 4 are the mid-game. Here we want to keep controlling the field. We want to catch our opponents without many units and use Power of the Dark Side to kind of stall how much board presence we have to put out until we really need to put that presence out. If your opponent is dropping something on curve and you can catch them with no units to protect it, playing Power of the Dark Side 2 turns in a row to just like stall for 2 turns is a very successful tactic here. We're going to want to focus on, if we're playing units that complete a removal upon playing. So either you're playing a Death Trooper and pinging something and then finishing it off with Vader, or that Death Trooper ping is going to kill it on its own, or the Interceptor is going to eat whatever your opponent has on the field. You really want to be building your board presence to put pressure on your opponent without wasting too many of your events and the things that you're going to need later in the game to take care of big threats. So a really important part to these decks is the counter leader strategy, and I think this is important to all decks. In the current meta and in Star Wars Unlimited, it's really important that you have a plan for when your opposing leader flips. Once you see that leader, you get to see how many resources it flips at, you get to know what its stats are on the other side, you should know what that leader is going to do. So you need to think about, especially in a control deck, but in all decks, that leader is going to flip on turn ABC without ramp. It's going to flip a little bit earlier with ramp. What are the answers I have in my deck to take care of that? Luckily, this deck is super well suited in the current meta. Sabine and Iden are 2 of the top decks, and they both immediately get purged to a takedown, which is resource neutral or cheaper than that unit flips at. Don't get me wrong, if Sabine flips and also pukes 2 2-drops onto the board, you're still going to be playing catch-up for a little bit. But if you can remove that leader immediately upon them deploying, it's a really big momentum shift in your favor. Now, Takedown does not work on Boba Fett. Boba Fett has 7 hit points, so you're going to have to get some damage into Boba Fett first. Luckily, we have Vader's ability, but that means you're probably not going to remove Boba Fett before he gets 1 trigger. But we really want to avoid letting him have more than 1 trigger. So if your opponent plays a Boba Fett or flips a Boba Fett, you're going to want to have a cell block guard that he has to swing into, or deploy a Death Trooper to get 2 damage onto him so that you can then finish him off with a takedown. Alright, late game, after that leader flip typically, for resource 6 to 9, you typically want to be hitting things on curve. You want to deploy your Ruthless Vader on 6 resources, and then a Count Dooku, and then a Palpatine, and then Avenger, and you're just playing these huge bodies that have a removal event attached to them. Don't be afraid to pivot on turn 7 if you don't have a Dooku in your hand. It's totally okay to flip Vader in, use your lightsaber, and play a cell block guard or something like that. Still a very powerful turn 7, but being able to build those bodies that are removing things from the board is really the goal of our deck. Typically at this point in the game, aggro is like out of steam. They're struggling to get cards, they're drawing into 1, 2, and 3 drops that aren't really helpful to them. Mid-range is starting to run low, but they're kind of in their prime, so we really need to use things like Count Dooku to remove whatever threat mid-range pops out. And control is doing just what we're doing, and they're dropping 1 big unit a turn. So in a control matchup, you have to remember they're going to be dropping 1 big unit a turn. Is there a way that I can remove that unit and still build my board presence, either through my own big units or through a Vanquish and a small unit or something like that? All right, so some miscellaneous meta preparation. Just some cards you're going to expect to encounter. Darth Vader, he exists. He is a $80 to $90 card for a reason. He is a very strong card. When he comes in, he's going to take out something of yours. He's also going to puke some things on the board, likely a super laser technician or a cell block guard or some sort of spaceship. You're going to have to prepare for that. For us, the best way to prepare for that is to have a cell block guard or something with 3 power down ahead of time. And luckily, our deck has a ton of those. We've got the Death Star Stormtrooper, we've got Probe Droid, we've got Cell Block Guard, we've got regular Death Trooper. All of these things with 3 attack are great for Vader to have to ambush into if they want to use his ambush ability. Once you do that, he's down to 4 HP, and you happen to have a 7 cost card that comes in shielded that immediately defeats something with 4 HP or less. It doesn't matter if they have a bodyguard out. It doesn't matter if they find a way to ready Vader or put a shield on him or whatever. Count Dooku can just take him out once he takes damage. So it's really, really important that you have these 3 power units that Vader is going to swing into when you're going up against green villainy. Alright, some other miscellaneous meta prep. This is more on your side. Takedown is a super important card. You can bluff that it's in your hand. And not like bluff, but like just always be looking at, when you're playing a control deck, always be looking at what's on your opponent's board. Oh, that thing has 5 hit points left. That's good to know. Eventually, they're going to figure out that you're bluffing if you're actually verbally bluffing. But what I mean is you can bluff with your hand by having a lot of solutions in your hand. Takedown's an incredibly powerful card, and every good player that is playing against you, likely playing against you, needs to respect that. If they don't respect the fact that you could have takedown in your hand at any point in time, they're going to lose the game, especially leaders like Sabine and Iden. They're going to deploy when they're not protected, and it's going to snowball out of control for them. There's a ton of meta-relevant units that also get taken out by takedown. We're talking about Boba Fett units, Steadfast Battalion, Bosk, Freedom Fighters. All of these are great things that can get taken down with a pretty effective, cost-effective event on your end. Especially with Vader, you can ping something down from 6 health and hit even bigger targets with this, like Fett's Fire Spray and things like that. So you really want to find takedown in these matchups, especially against Iden and Sabine, but also against Boba to get rid of that Boba Fett unit and be ready to use it to remove the biggest threats before they get to do anything. Alright, another card you should prepare for, Overwhelming Barrage. This card exists and we hate it. We hate it with a burning passion. Typically, we have a lot of damaged units because we're making favorable trades, a lot of 2-for-1 trades with our unit. We're feeling great. We're doing awesome. And then it gets to resource turn 5, and your opponent has a dinky 3-2 probe droid, and they play Overwhelming Barrage and somehow wipe your board. It happens. When you're playing this deck and you're learning the ropes of playing this deck, it's going to happen to you. And what I'm telling you is don't let it happen. Don't overextend. You're the control player. If you're kind of already putting pressure on them and they're not able to stick units to the board, don't feel like you have to expend every resource you have deploying units to the board because you're setting yourself up to be overwhelming barraged. This card is good enough to include in off aspects. In fact, I've included this card in this deck that doesn't run command cards at all because it's a lot of times it feels like a one-sided super laser blast. It's amazingly strong. So your probe droids that have weak health, your Death Star Stormtroopers, your Death Troopers that have probably pinged themselves, nothing feels worse than having an overwhelming barrage, knock out 3 to 4 of your units, and then have a big leader or even a medium unit that's now beefed up swing into your base for 5 or 6 damage. So prepare for overwhelming barrage, maybe even sideboard regional governor so that you can call it to say, I don't want to see that card. But know that it's coming and keep track of how many have been played as you're playing the game. All right, some other tips. I Am Your Father. We talked about this a little bit in the run-through. I really like I Am Your Father. There are people that really dislike I Am Your Father. It is a very polarizing card. If you don't like it, put in an open fire, put in some other removal. There's a ton of removal in red and blue. You'll find something else to put into your deck. For me, this is a late game removal. Say we're on resource 6 or 7, and we don't have our drop. We don't have our Dooku, and we want to flip Vader, but our opponent has a bunch of things out there. I Am Your Father one thing, and if my opponent is smart, they'll take the 7 damage and let the one thing die. If they're not, they'll probably let me draw 3 cards, and I'll draw into a Power of the Dark Side, or a Takedown, or a Vanquish, and I'll also get to play that card. Still removing the unit, but having netted 2 cards in my deck so that I have more control solutions for the future. I only like to play this when I'm okay with my opponent choosing either of the two options. If I'm playing this in desperation, where I really need the damage or I really need the card draw, I just have to assume that my opponent is going to choose the opposite thing. If you go in with that mindset, this can be a really powerful and strong card. So don't be scared away from it just because it gives your opponent a choice. Just make sure, just like with Power of the Dark Side and Avenger, that all the choices you're giving them are equally bad, and then they'll make the wrong choice because there is no right choice then. All right, lockdown with this deck. Just another word I use when I'm streaming with this or playing against people with this. My goal is to lock down my opponent's board where they have no units on the board and they're stuck with initiative because they have taken it and they want to get units onto the field. And they will play a unit and then I will try to immediately remove it so that they cannot sustain more than one unit. That makes it very dangerous to flip their leader because they could get blown out by Power of the Dark Side. Definitely didn't happen in my camera game. That's going to happen at the end of this video. No, it did happen. I fell for my own tricks, but that's what we want to do, right? Is we want to have the board completely clear so that at 3 resources we can swing with our probe droid into something and then play Power of the Dark Side with whatever our opponent responds with. And the next turn, take down whatever our opponent plays. And the turn after that, vanquish whatever our opponent plays. And now all we've got to deal with is that leader flip. So our goal, same with Avenger, is just to have this clear board so that we've got to use one event to remove whatever our opponent is playing on curve, if they're playing on curve. Swarm can be a little bit of a different disaster. All right, we've got Super Laser Blast to blast or not to blast. It's tricky to find the right timing for this card, and this is one of the reasons I'm thinking about removing it. Sometimes when I play this card, it really swings the game in my opponent's favor, which I don't want. If your opponent doesn't have Power of the Dark Side removal, my favorite way to use this is to wait a turn to deploy Vader until I'm at 8 resources, clear the board, and then deploy Vader so that if my opponent plays anything, I can murder it with Vader, and then the game just snowballs from there. If they have Power of the Dark Side, don't do what I do and clear the board and then deploy your Vader, because you'll be very sad when he gets Power of the Dark Sided. That being said, I think it's totally okay to swap this out for a Overwhelming Barrage. Overwhelming Barrage is going to cost 7 with the aspect penalty from not having command within your aspect pool. But if you flip your Vader on turn 7, and then you give him +2/+2, he now gets to do his 7 damage divided amongst all the units. He can then attack and ping another unit for 2 and slap into something for 7. You've probably dismantled your opponent's board at that point, to the point that you have a really beefy Vader and they have nothing. And that is a resource cheaper and much more powerful than Super Laser Blast, so might be the way to go. All right, let's get into these pivot packages. I started leaning into them before I got there. So use the Force. This is if you really like the Force package. I would increase your Dooku count by 1. The cards on the right are cards that I would add. The cards on the left are cards that I would remove. So remove some of your early game stuff, some of your removal like Open Fire and I Am Your Father, and add in some Force traded removal. So we're talking about Force Choke, we're talking about Force Throw. Bringing in Fifth Brother so that we're able to trigger those earlier is going to be essential and important to being able to do this. Goof Troop, this is leaning more into the trooper aspect of things. We have a ton of troopers in our deck. We have our Death Star Stormtroopers, we have our Death Troopers, we have our Cell Block Guards, we have our little First Legion Snow Troopers. We can lean into that and bring things like Precision Fire. One thing that can really shut your deck down and your pinging down is shields, right? If you're depending on all your removal to defeat things, I mean, Takedown and Vanquish still work, but a lot of your removal is damage. And if shields are blocking that, that can be annoying. So having 3 precision strikes with a ton of troopers in your deck is super powerful for pushing against your opponent if they're shield heavy. Anti-aggro, this is for those aggro decks that are really causing problems. Remove some of your late game stuff and bring some more early game stuff to get you to that Vader flip. If you can flip Vader safely against aggro, you're usually going to win. So I usually bring more bodyguards or sentinels. I usually bring 3 copies of Make an Opening, really great for like swinging health in your favor. You're going to give an opposing unit -2/-2, so it doesn't deal as much damage. You're also going to heal damage from your base and hopefully favorably trade into that unit. Very powerful. Regional Governor, great card for just calling out your problem and saying, no, you can't play that until you get rid of this thing first. All right, and some out-of-aspect cards that you might consider pivoting in. These are out-of-aspect cards that you're going to have to pay an aspect penalty for. I'm not going to tell you what to remove. We already talked about Overwhelming Barrage for that. It's going to be up to you to decide if these fit into your style or not. Some people really don't like paying aspect penalties. I'm a player that loves to figure out what cards would make this deck sing if they were in my aspect, and are they worth the extra 2 resources. And these are the 2 examples I have for this deck. No Good to Be Dead is a 2-cost Cunning Villainy plan event. Exhaust a unit. That unit cannot ready this round, including during the regroup phase. Nothing ticks off a Boba Fett player like them flipping and then you immediately saying you can't ready that unit for a couple of rounds. Or they play a Slave 1, or not a Slave 1, Fet's Fire Spray. That's what it's called now. And same thing, you just say, no good to be dead, you are not coming out. It really lets you stall the game until your Vader can deploy, and most things aren't going to trade favorably into your Vader, so you have this huge advantage. Well worth the 4 resources in this deck. Probably in every deck, maybe not so. But in this deck, in a control deck, when you really need to stall the game and get to turn 7 or resource turn 7, no good to be dead, very bueno. All right, we've got Overwhelming Barrage. We already talked about that. This feels like a one-sided Super Laser Blast. You do have to have a unit down to be able to trigger this, but even if your unit only has 4 attack or 3 attack, being able to take 5 and then spread that amongst the board and then potentially ping with Vader, a lot of times can clean up a bunch of units and make the board swing from not in your favor to super in your favor. So very powerful card, definitely worth the 7 resources in this deck. All right, our M&Ms are Mulligans and Match-Ups. So looking at the most popular decks in the meta right now when I recorded this video, my thoughts are that the meta aggro deck typically right now still is Sabine. We have actually a really favorable matchup against Sabine. Typically, like aggro beats control and mid-range beats aggro and control beats mid-range. But here, it's a little bit different. I feel like this deck is actually really strong against aggro because you have those low-cost bodies that are good at removing. You have your Death Troopers. You have a lot of low-cost removal and Vader's ping ability. A lot of times you can lock down an aggro player. Now, don't get me wrong. If Sabine draws all the gas, and all the gas is perfectly where she wants it to be, it could still be a really difficult matchup. But if you have your gas or what you need early on, a lot of times you can trade really favorably into Sabine and set her back to the point where she can't be pinging bases. And now she's got to try to play this late game, which does not work against you. So here, you're mulliganing for Viper Probe Droid and Death Trooper, the little 1-cost Death Trooper, the Death Star Stormtrooper, as well as the Death Trooper 3-cost card. If you can get those cards in your opening hand, you're going to have a really lovely first 3 turns. Early game, you still want to trade units. You want to remove your opponent's units, even if it's a 1-for-1 trade, and make good trades with base health and board control. If you can play a unit and start putting pressure onto Sabine's base so that she can't afford to ping and has to trade into your units to slow you down, that's when you know you've really flipped the tables on Sabine. Try to have initiative early, right? It's a dice roll or whatever you do in your local group for deciding initiative. But having initiative early can be really powerful. And then later in the game, you're okay with Sabine having initiative and you getting to respond to whatever she brings into play. All right, against Boba Fett, this is the meta mid-range deck. Boba Fett is more of an even matchup. Boba Fett does like to remove units, so if you're using your efficient units early on to trade, Boba is going to get these extra resources, which lets him deploy more units, which often lets you not get into that little lockout situation that you like to be in. You want to sort of avoid early game trades and put some pressure onto base so that Boba Fett is set back a little bit. If you can do early game trades with pings, like pinging Greedo or things like that, that can be very powerful. But Boba wants to take out units, so pressure base and force him to waste his actions taking out your units instead of you giving him those resources for free. You can take the backseat here and sort of react to what Boba does early on and mid to late game. A lot of times you're going to try to react to what they have and remove their units so that they don't get to trade into your unit, denying Boba his resources. Great matchup to bring No Good to Be Dead in. Really, really strong against Boba Fett. All right, the meta control deck, in my opinion right now, is still Iden. I think we have a really favorable matchup against Iden. She does get to heal a lot of damage, and we get to ping for a lot of damage, often trading that back and forth. But we're also removing units while we do that. And our body is just so much better than Iden's body when she flips, especially because we can take down Iden, that it really puts her back if she doesn't roll into controlling your board like you're trying to control hers. And that's mainly against blue-green Iden, Blue-red Iden is really a toss-up because you run very similar decks. A lot of times I've seen some blue-red Iden decks that only have like 4 cards different from this deck. You're just looking at a different leader. So you've got to make it to turn 7 when your leader gets to flip out. Ideally take down Iden, and you should have a good matchup. One of the hardest matchups for us is actually ramp. So green, red Vader with command can be very difficult for us. Tarkin, like the ramp king himself in double command, can be really difficult. If they're getting to those super efficient units way faster than you, that means they're doing their drop one big thing a turn 3 or 4 turns earlier than you are, and eventually other things are going to overwhelm you. So you need to trade units early and not let Tarkin build up too much XP on things. Super Laser Technician is going to crash into you, so you have 2 choices. You can either accept it and let your opponent get those things out earlier, or you can play a very light ground game early on and just use removal events but leave that Super Laser Technician out until you're at a point where you're okay with your opponent ramping up one. You're prepared for that Darth Vader, or you're prepared for Tarkin to flip. Be careful at the end of the game. Tarkin has enough draw, especially with the Tarkin unit, that your traps like Avenger and Power of the Dark Side might not hold as much power as they do in a normal matchup because so many things can get onto the board. Alright, so my closing remarks for this deck. This deck is super fun to play. It's super thinky when you're playing it, like all control decks should be. And it is very, very good at controlling the board. What it's going to do is it's going to control the board. It's going to lock down your opponent so that they can't get units to stick. Nothing is less fun than playing against this deck and just never having a unit survive. It has favorable or even matchups against most of the meta that's out there right now. It's not a deck that's going to make you friends, and that's okay. Like, everybody needs to have a deck that is difficult for them to overcome because there are weaknesses to this deck. A little bit of an even matchup with Boba Fett and a really tough to even matchup against Ramp, in my opinion. This deck will win you games at your local meta. You'll have super fun playing it, and you'll definitely have this appreciation for a deck that doesn't take a lot of card draw, but just takes a lot of solutions and knows how to draw into the right ones at the right time. So, with that, we're going to go to a gameplay video. This is a best of 3 match against Nerd Parker from the SAGA webcam league. This was my week 3 matchup. And we'll let you see what happens. I definitely make a ton of play mistakes in here, so feel free to make fun of me for them in the comments, because I'm pretty sure I do out loud on camera to my opponent. All right, here we go. I will start with the initiative then.
All right, I'll lose mine. And D6 off the top. That's 6 cards off the top for the shuffle, or for the cut.
Nice. I like that plan.
Hey, it's your plan.
Oh, I didn't make that, but I'll roll mine. I got 5, so 5 to the bottom. Is that what I do?
Yep. To make up for cutting, yeah. So
that's smart. It's random. I like it. Okay. Here we go. Supposedly it's recording. We'll find out later.
Okay. Absolutely not.
I think I will keep this one.
Okay. Shuffling now. The internet can judge me for how I shuffle. It'll be fun.
Always fun. Yeah, that's a good thing.
As somebody who's been playing LCGs for since Game of Thrones came out, getting back into TCGs has been wild.
An adventure.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Let's see what I've got. I don't really have a choice though. I just have to pick what I'm resourcing. That and okay.
Okay.
To you.
I will pay 2 for a Probe Droid, and we'll see what's in your awesome hand over there.
I've got Takedown, OB, Darth, and the Probe Droid that I'm about to drop.
Ah, okay. Perfect.
Also a Probe Droid.
All right. I've got a Snowtrooper Lieutenant, a Cell Block Guard, and an Inferno 4.
You have a much better hand.
I have a much lower curve, that's for sure.
All right,
I will
to you.
keep initiative.
All right, I will pass and draw 2.
All right, yep. Don't untap yet. I'm still learning. I think that one has to go down and then untap. I resourced 1.
I resourced 1.
Okay. I will pay 2 for Snowtrooper Lieutenant and have my probe droid hit your base for 5.
Okay. I will run my probe droid into your probe droid.
Fair. I will pass, but
I
not
will
take initiative.
I will take the initiative and end the
Okay.
turn.
I was afraid that might happen.
So I will put out my initiative token.
I'm going to get rid of mine. I'm going to draw my
I've drawn 2. Yep.
What is the right answer here? I think it's this one. Ready everything.
I'll exhaust 2 and play Snowtrooper Lieutenant.
Okay. I will exhaust 2 and play Inferno 4.
Hmm.
Look at the top 2. Gross. Put 1 on top and 1 on bottom.
Is your camera coming through reversed? I believe it is.
Oh.
I can live with that.
It is not for me, but that is strange.
Right. Well, you'll find out, but I can live with that. I was like Snowtrooper Lieutenant 1-1. No, but those are 2s, but those are backwards. Okay.
Those
Anyways,
are 2s. Sorry.
Yep. I will. I'll take the initiative.
Okay. I will crash into your Snowtrooper Lieutenant. Trades.
Crazies. All right. To you.
And I will play a regional governor and say overwhelming barrage.
Okay.
And then
You
pass.
done?
Yeah.
All right. Draw 2.
Draw 2. I knew it. One of those was going to be... I'll put it down.
I've resourced and I'm ready when you are.
I am ready as well.
All right. I'll run Gideon Hask into the regional governor.
Totally good.
Gideon takes 1 damage and gains an experience point.
Does Iden flip on 5 or 6?
6.
6. Okay. I will pay 5 to vanquish Gideon Hask.
Okay. You've paid 5. Is it worth the 1 hit point? No, I'll take the initiative.
Okay. I'll crash 2 at base with Inferno 4.
Okay.
And then I will pass and
Okay.
draw 2. I resourced up to 6.
As did I. I will bring out Gideon.
What are Gideon's stats? I can't read it from
5-5.
5-5.
Yeah.
Okay. I will play a little stormtrooper friend, a 3-1.
All right. I will deploy Iden.
All right. I will cast Takedown to defeat a unit with 5 or less HP with Iden.
Yep. There you go. I will take the initiative.
Okay. I will use Vader to ping Gideon and your base, because I've played a villainy unit. And then I will hit base with Inferno 4 for 2 more.
Okay.
And then I will pass.
Okay.
Draw my 2. And I got a resource 1. So I'm at 7 now.
Okay. Okay. I'll run Gideon into your base.
For 6?
5.
5.
For 5.
Let me find a little 5 token here. It's going to look backwards, but that is a 5.
That's fine. I trust it.
I will run 3 into your base with Death Star Stormtrooper.
Okay. I will pass.
I will run 2 into your base with Inferno 4.
I will pass.
I will pay 6 for Ruthless Raider to hit Gideon for 2 and your base for 2.
I'm gonna scoop.
Scoop. Okay. Game
Good
2.
game. Yeah, game 2.
Yeah, lots of really good draw for me is what I would say.
I mean, I don't like to be a player who blames the hand, but I definitely went from a very high curve into a still. I mean, like high enough that I would have tossed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know. I saw your hand. It was.
You saw my hand. Like
it was
it was a pretty high curve hand.
pretty high curve. All right.
And I just lowered the curve on this.
I just raised mine and I drew into my low curve, which was good.
Yeah, that's always pleasant.
Do you
I
want
will
the
go
initiative?
first.
Okay,
I will
perfect.
take the initiative.
I'm gonna roll my dice for my thing. 4. I'm gonna put onto the bottom of my deck after I shuffle. One, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and then, like the turns 2 and 3 didn't help. Where it's like turn 2, it's like, oh, another Gideon Hask and a super laser blast, and it's like not helpful.
Yeah, I was worried about another Gideon or about a super laser blast, but I was like, I think I can just get this Raider out, and it helps me for a bit.
I keep 1 in the main deck, not to give away everything, and I keep. Oh, what do I want to sideboard?
Yeah, I probably should have thought about that, but I already shuffled and drew, and I like what I drew, so it's too late.
All right, I'm going to take a moment and consider my sideboard. One. Green.
I need a little screen to stop my lamp or my overhead light right there.
Let me quickly figure out what I'm taking out. One, 2, 3. All right. These are the ins. These are the outs. So where are you out of? Are you comfortable saying that on a recording?
Yeah, I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We've talked about it before, so I can't hide it anymore.
That's fair.
The internet knows everything.
My handle is literally PDX, so I kind of have to be honest that I'm in Portland, which is a really good city for. It turns out raining all the time means there's a lot of
game
stores. A lot of game stores.
It's funny, when we moved here, there was like nothing. There was like 4 people that played card games in the city, but now there's 7 game stores, and they're all thriving, which is crazy. But
6 off the top.
All right, good luck.
Thank you. Yeah.
Get all those 8 cost cards in your hand to start again.
I'm gonna toss.
Okay.
If I'm scooping, I'm allowed to make up the time by
totally
mulliganing.
I got to do work after this, so
really?
The longer this goes, the better.
I am deploying as soon as I'm going to put my workspace back, and then I got to do a SWOOT-DB deploy tonight. I've got a bunch of features I want to roll out.
Nice.
Trying to be I was racing till game launch, and now I'm trying to say, okay, Tuesday nights, structured cadence. I want people to know that's when new features come out, and more importantly, that's when the server might be a little hiccupy.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know, up until now, I have been. Oh wait, oops. D6 off the top. live with this. All right. And I have the initiative.
Yes.
Inferno.
Okay.
No. I will one on top and one on bottom. To you.
I will also Inferno.
It's a good. I love this card.
One on top, one on bottom as well.
I will pass, or I'll take the initiative rather.
Perfect. I will pass.
Okay, draw 2.
Drawing 2. Gotta put something down, so I guess it's you. No, it's not. It's you. Okay. 3 down, radiating everything. And then it's your go.
Viper probe droid.
I have a takedown. Another copy of takedown, because I really don't like Iden.
Yep.
A Death Trooper and a Viper probe droid.
Okay. I have that. I'll be curious to see which one is about to come my way.
I will Death Trooper deal 2 to take out your Viper probe droid.
And I will do 2 to base.
Okay. I will also do 2 to base.
I will take the initiative.
I will pass. Drawing 2. These are all good. I think that's the one I gotta put down. Okay. Readying everybody up.
Okay. 2 to base.
Alright, so I'm gonna put a 4 out there. I will do 3 to base with my Death Trooper.
Yeah. Power of the dark side.
I will sacrifice my Death Trooper.
Okay.
I will do 2 to your Inferno 4.
Okay.
That was probably dumb. I did that wrong. I'll learn from that.
I will heal 1.
Okay. I will make an opening to give your Inferno 4 -2/-2 and heal 2.
Okay.
Which I probably should have done before I attacked with mine, but you know, now I learned.
And I will look at the top 2.
Yep.
On the bottom, 1 on top. I will take the initiative.
I will pass. Drawing
Okay.
2. Oh, resource chuck at 1.
Super laser tech.
Okay. I will hit base for 2.
Okay. I will take the initiative.
Okay. Ugh. Ugh, 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 ugh. This isn't really what I want, but I think I have to do it. I'm going to pay 4 for an Interceptor and not trigger the when played ability.
Okay.
And I will ping base and my Interceptor for 1.
My base. Got it.
Your base, my Interceptor.
Yep.
I have to hit a unit if I can, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then I will pass.
All right. See, I'll bring out Iden.
Okay. I will take down Iden.
Yep. Two. Don't have a lot of choices here. I will traitorous your Inferno,
Okay.
which has 2 damage on it.
2 damage and 3 health.
Yeah, I know Inferno, but so
It's got 2 damage on it.
Yep.
It has a power of 2 and 3 health.
Yeah. I got them in my discard right here.
Oh,
but
perfect.
I most importantly just need to know
How much damage
So,
is left on him.
So I'm just going to leave the traitorous out. If it comes up, I'll go find a proxy to swap it for.
Yeah, that sounds fine. I will swing 3 at your base.
Okay. I will swing Inferno 4 into
Interceptor, yeah.
into Interceptor.
I'm going to put this Inferno 4 in my discard pile from up here.
Yep.
I don't think I have anything that does stuff with that, but just in case.
Yeah, it would go back into your discard pile now. So.
I will.
But hold on. I gotta look at the top 2 cards
right.
in my deck.
I will not take initiative. I might have something left.
1 on top, 1 on bottom.
Okay. Now I will take initiative. I'm going to switch it in my little interface here. Bam.
All right. I'll do 2 to base.
Yep, so I'm going to go to 4.
And then I will draw 2, pass and draw 2.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I will deploy Mr. Vader over here.
Okay. I will power the dark side.
Why did I fall for that? I will do my own power of the dark side.
Okay. I will heal 1.
I will pass.
I will take the initiative.
All right. Put that away. Drawing 2. You come back. That's good. That's good for me. I think you have to go away. That's a sad day. Okay.
Resource. I'll pass.
Okay. I will play a Ruthless Raider and ping your base for 2.
Okay. That's a beefy boy. I don't think I have a choice. I'll Super Laser Blast.
Okay, I'll ping your base for 2 on defeat.
Yep. To you.
I will trigger Vader to ping your base 1 more.
And then I will take the initiative. I'll pass.
You currently have the initiative. I will also pass, and we'll draw 2.
Yeah.
Nobody wants the initiative today.
Nobody really wants the initiative today. I can work with that. Resource 1. I will pass.
I will play a regional governor and say Darth Vader.
Sure. I will Dooku.
Also a choice. I will Power of the Dark Side.
Okay. I will tap and heal 1.
Okay. I will ping your base for 1. We're in this eternal battle of pinging.
Yep. I will Viper Probe Droid.
Okay, I have a Super Laser Blast and a Cell Block Guard.
I can work with that. Sure.
How many cards in hand?
3.
3. Okay. I will play my cell block card.
Okay, I'll take the initiative.
All right, I will pass. I will keep them all.
I will resource 1. I'm just making room.
Mhm.
Okay. I will run my Viper Probe Droid into your subblock card.
Good choice. I will pass.
I will play Sorsham Star Viper.
Okay. I will. Pass.
I will take the initiative.
Yep. Oh, somehow I got that off. You have the initiative. Okay. Draw 2. Oh, we got to get rid of something here. I think it's this guy. Okay.
To me?
To you, yeah.
I will hit your base for 3 and heal 2.
Good choice. We will Vapor Probe Droid over here.
Okay. Death Trooper, Avenger, Dooku, Double Vader.
Oh gosh, this is bad.
I'm in the beef. I've curved into the beef.
Ah, to you.
It's gonna let me have it.
Well, I played Probe Droid.
Oh right. Sure. I'll get rid of the probe droid.
Yep. I will ping your Death Trooper dead and your base for 1.
Okay. I'll put 1 on the base, and then I will exhaust Iden to take 1 off the base.
Okay. I will Power of the Dark Side.
Okay. We'll lose the Consortium Star Viper. Have the initiative. I will pass.
I will also pass.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Play my own Inferno.
Okay.
My hand is going up here. One on top, 1 on bottom.
Okay. I will Ruthless Raider to hit your Inferno and your base for 2.
Okay. I'll Avenger.
Okay. I will hit your base and Avenger for 2. And I will take initiative.
Oh, you will? Okay. I will exhaust to heal 1. And then I will pass and draw 2.
All right.
Will not resource.
I will do my own laser blast.
Okay. Let me look at the tops. Cycle both. Seasons seasoned shore trooper.
I will play my Inferno.
Okay.
I'll put 1 on top and 1 on bottom.
All right. I will Dooku.
Yep.
You may
I
look
will
again.
take the initiative. Oh, I can look again. Good point. I will put 1 on bottom and that other one back on top again.
Okay. And then you'll take
And
the
now I'll take
initiative.
initiative, yeah.
Okay. I will heal 1, and then I will pass.
Okay. Drawing 2. Okay. So I did resource 1. I will pay.
You're at how many now total?
I'm about to find out.
Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay.
And I will pay 8 for a Palpatine. We'll get
Okay.
rid of Dooku's shield and then do the rest to the Shore Trooper.
Okay. Avenger.
Yep. I will. Death Trooper, 2 and 2. 2 on the Dooku, 2 on to Death Trooper. Put them on the wrong side.
I will run Dooku into base.
For 5?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to do. I'm at 7. So I'll go to 12. I will take initiative.
Okay. I'll heal 1.
Okay.
And then I will pass and draw 2.
All right. Dooku has 5 health.
He has 4 normally. He has 2 left.
2
Or he has 4
left.
health and 2 damage.
Gotcha. Okay. I will not resource.
Okay.
I will pay 5. That's 5. To vanquish Avenger.
Okay. I will Vader. Here's my hand. I'll do the 10 cards first.
Okay.
I'll drop a Consortium Star Viper, and then I will ambush Vader
Death Trooper dead.
to the Death Trooper. And Vader will take 3.
I will take initiative.
Okay. I'll do 5 to you.
To face. Nope, that's a 3. Let me find a 5. There it is.
And then I will heal 1. And then I will pass and draw 2.
Okay.
Go on a resource. I think I'm okay.
I'm not going to resource as well. I will pay 8 for a Super Laser Blast.
Yeah, that seemed reasonable.
It's the right thing to do in that situation, at least.
Main decking 2. Okay. How many resources do you have left?
3.
You have the initiative. I'll pass.
I will say no playing Vader.
Okay. I'll take her down.
Fair. I will ping your base for 1.
Okay. I will heal for 1.
I will take initiative.
All right. I will draw 2.
Okay. I am going to put 1 down this time, so I'm up to 12.
Okay.
I will pay 3 for a cell block guard.
Okay. Pay 3 for a Consortium Star Viper.
Okay. I will pay 7 for a Dooku and get rid of the Consortium Star Viper.
Okay. We'll pay 4 and take down Dooku.
I will ping my cell block guard and your base.
Okay. I will heal my base.
I will take the initiative.
Okay. Resource 1.
I will also resource 1. Okay. I will swing 3 at base.
Okay. I'll take this off. Put 5 on. I'll take your cell block guard. Exhausted.
Yes. He's really my friend, and I want him back, so I'll play an Avenger.
Okay. I will vanquish the Avenger.
Okay. I will ping your base for 1.
Okay. I will heal for 1.
I will take initiative.
Okay.
You're passing?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Sorry, I should have said that out loud.
Before I do something foolish. Right?
Sorry. At my locals, I'm used to just draw 2 as indicative of passing. But
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm up in my head.
Oh gosh, how much is in this resource pile? 1, 2, 3. I will resource 1 more.
Okay.
I'll pass.
Okay. I will play a Super Laser Technician.
Okay. I'll play... Oh, that's dumb. I will take down the Super Laser Technician.
Okay. Cell block guard.
Okay. Avenger again.
Okay, I'll sack that. Vader, no ambush.
Okay.
There's my hand. I'll put a seasoned shore trooper into play.
Okay.
And I will shuffle.
Was
whole
10
thing.
your whole deck at that point?
9 was my
Okay.
whole deck at that point.
I will take initiative.
I will pass and draw 2. You didn't lose a unit this round, right?
I did not. I passed.
Yep,
I
I
take
think so.
down, deny.
Yep. I will draw 2.
Okay. Okay.
there's stacks of 3 if that ever is unclear. That's fine.
I will vanquish Vader.
Okay. I will make an opening the Avenger.
Okay.
Healing 2.
I'll hit your base for 6 and get rid of the shore trooper.
Yeah, I gotta do it again. I think I have run out. My luck has run. Oh. I miscounted. Oh, the
Technician.
the technician. That will change things. I will. Death Trooper. 2 to the Trooper, 2 to the Avenger.
Death Trooper only hits ground units.
Oh, you are correct. Well, I have to do as much as I can. I've played them.
You can put it back in your hand. This is casual, so we're
No,
learning.
this is a league. This is
okay,
a league.
this
man.
is league.
This is a
It's
league.
true. It's true.
I have to. I have to be okay with that.
I will play this guy and not trigger his ability because it's a May.
Okay. Let's see. Do I have anything that I can do? I'm at 18, 19. I don't think I can stop you next round. Yeah, let's game. Good game.
Okay, GG. I was worried about
GG.
overwhelming barrage on that Vader, so I was like, I have to vanquish it.
Yeah.
My
I was
last
trying.
card in hand was my 3rd copy of Vanquish.
No, I was at one point was sitting on 3 Vaders, so
I saw 2 of them. So
yeah.
I
That
was
deck
down
did
to 8
not come
cards in deck.
together.
I was real nervous over here.